Let's continue our discussion now and focus on the state of provinces after the ANC's conference in December 2017. Ralph Mathekga is our guest, our political analyst, who's dissecting them for us. So we've been through a couple of the major provinces, and let's bring up now, I think, one that we really need to watch and very, very closely. One that's seen, I think, the most loss of lives, and that's KwaZulu-Natal. This is a big one because as we enter into this weekend, we cannot brush aside the fact that there are 4 ANC regions to hold elective conferences this weekend, and we don't see that province as a very peaceful province at this point. Talk to us about what you view KZN to be like.
The environment in KZN is quite worrisome and life and death, as you say, and it's literal there. There is no philosophy about it. In KZN, if you're out of line, you lose your life. But I also think that the impact of KZN when it comes to the credibility and the integrity of national leadership of the ANC. I mean, if you look at what is happening in KZN, it appears to me that if the ANC is not careful, the entire KZN is going to be a retirement place for anyone facing the law within the ANC. Because what that means, President Jacob Zuma is facing court hearings there, and the likes of the Premier of Northwest. One thing that I think the ANC is worried about is to make sure that if they get rid of him, they do it in a manner that is not done well. He's going to land straight in KZN. And you don't want consolidation against the national leadership in KZN. And unfortunately, KZN has gotten to that point where you just cannot reign KZN. And now the ANC is concerned as to whether KZN is going to be fully behind the national leadership when they campaign for 2019. It has been allowed to evolve further from the national leadership for a long time. KZN has been used in leading the factions within the ANC to a point where it has gained the life of its own as a strategic center stage for challenging the national leadership. At this point, there is nothing the ANC can do. It is just to negotiate with the power barons in KZN. That's all they can do.
Which is worrisome because KZN has seen, as we keep on emphasizing, a massive loss of lives, and it's all between different factions of the ANC. And it's not even different political parties, it's the same political party that are killing each other. And that's a worry.
That's quite a concern. I mean, it goes to the level of a councillor. I mean, if people find it necessary to eliminate councillor, people that I would say for me, they're supposed to be at the lower level when it comes to political leadership. I mean, I don't mean to undermine councillors, but comparing to other positions at national, even at regional level, you look at it, councillors' lives are quite not safe there. So it's quite difficult, and the national leadership just cannot do anything about it. I can actually even say that KZN is partially a no-go area for the national leadership of the ANC. They can't just walk much into KZN. They got to be very careful. They've got to wait for the local leaders there to hold their hands to go around KZN. The national leadership can't just pronounce itself in that province.
Now, Limpopo, Northern Province, they seem a little quiet, or are they?
Limpopo is a little bit quiet, but we read stories around Limpopo that the Premier, there is a report implicating people there that the Premier is sitting on it, Premier Stan Mathabata. This is why some within Northwest would be aggrieved to say that if what is happening in Northwest is an anti-corruption, why is it not happening in Limpopo as well? Why isn't there investigation into wrongdoing in Limpopo? Is it because Limpopo is understood to be in line with the national leadership that it is being given a reprieve? The reality is that most of the provinces where ANC relied on previously, strong presence there, they are just falling apart. You don't have Northwest as a given. You don't have Limpopo fully as a given. And we don't know what's happening in Mpumalanga. Western Cape is lost. Gauteng is on a knife edge as well. The opposition are gunning for Gauteng as well. KZN out of line as well. It's quite difficult. The ANC is going into 2019 election with about 50% of provinces that they are not even sure about what's going on in those provinces.
What about the Free State? I mean, now with Ace Magashule out, do we see changes there for the good?
I think that Ace still has a hold in Free State. He has been running Free State longer, probably the longest serving chairperson in that province. So I do think that the best you can do about Free State is not to ruffle feathers too much, because you just don't want to keep on adding the list of provinces that are recalcitrant going into elections. Quite risky.
But, this has been a very big focus on the ANC, but there are other political parties that are making massive mistakes right now. And the one that springs to mind is the DA. So I want to talk about what's happening, particularly in court this morning, with Patricia de Lille going and trying to, fight for her rights and clear her name. What have you made of what's happened to the DA? Because DA, who really did exceptionally well during the municipal elections, and now where they are fighting each other very much so in public and in courts now, what are you making of what's going on there, and particularly with regard to the de Lille issue?
When I look at the DA, I can easily compare to the ANC. Key is the internal coherences, the internal processes of the party. You look at what is happening within the DA, there is a serious question regarding the consistency of the use of the internal processes to meet justice among membership within the DA. But also, as if that's not enough, the de Lille issue. Now you have the race issue. You've got DA members daring, coming out in the open, challenging Mr. Maimane, their best connecting point to the black middle class in 2019. People within the DA need to understand that mathematically, they just cannot increase their votes without talking to black people. They've got to talk. The question as to how race need to be reflected within the DA. But the current crew of extremism within the DA, where they want to deny the impact of race on South African politics and on the distribution of opportunities, it doesn't really help the party. And I'm afraid going into this election, this might be the first time that the DA fails to demonstrate marginal gains, because they just cannot rely on their traditional white constituency.
The numbers game doesn't work in their favor.
You just can't. And we've seen it in the 2016 local government election around the suburbs in Johannesburg. Maximum turnout. You are just not going to get more. Since 2016, I don't think there has been new children that have been born who will be voting in 2019. You can't squeeze more. You've got to change your strategy on how you reach out to South Africans. And they need to allow Mr. Maimane to try with this project instead of doing what we see being done.
Just finally, and then I'm squeezing in this question because I can't not, but that's the EFF. And we saw a press conference being held by the Commander-in-Chief, Julius Malema, yesterday, putting all his cards on the table and speaking out, and particularly with regard to the land issue. The land issue central to their policies and what they want to see changed here. But is this good for South Africa? Because we're seeing a lot of violence being associated with this, and we are seeing things that are happening that we don't necessarily want to see happening, that is not falling within the boundaries of the law. What do you make of them? I mean, are they doing good for South Africa, or are they causing more harm? That's really the long and short of it.
The EFF, I refer to them as the chief disruptor in South African politics. Remember, the EFF is not implementing policy anyway. They are not going to be called upon to actually account on any policy. But what they've done very well since they came in South African politics in 2014 was actually to expose the relationship between the DA and the ANC, to say that is an unholy alliance based on elite politics. We will disrupt it. That is what they are doing. The whole land issue is also meant for that. It is also meant to disrupt that relationship between the ANC and the DA. Actually, if there is any party that is having all the fun now, disrupting just about anything, not being held responsible to implement anything, it is actually the EFF. They're just standing by the side. They wake up morning, they say that we're going to dissolve the coalition, and the DA goes running around, they say, no, we will freeze that decision a little bit. They control just about anyone. And why are they doing that? It's also because the ANC for the last 23 years failed to implement key policies to a point where those policies have become constitutional squabbles. So the EFF, are they good for South Africa or not? I would say they are inevitable. The space allows for them to do what they're doing.
There you go. Ralph Mathekga, thank you very much for talking to us, political analyst, giving us that roundup of the provinces and also the roundup of what political parties have been doing since the beginning of this year. All right, let's take a cool... Are we taking this break, guys? Anyone?